Halo, maaf telat masuknya Zoom-nya ya, teman-teman. Dari WC tadi.
Welcome Kak Hadi. Okay. I think we can start now. Here's a short video about our material today.
Perempuan di Indonesia pernah mengalami pelecehan seksual di ruang publik. Tindakan asusila tersebut dilakukan usai kedua pelaku mencekoki korban dengan minuman keras.
11 anak menjadi korban pelecehan seksual seorang ibu rumah tangga di Jambi.
Tersangka kekerasan seksual incest remaja perempuan berhasil ditangkap Polres Hulu Sungai Tengah.
Seorang remaja 16 tahun menjadi korban pemerkosaan oleh oknum polisi yang bertugas di Polsek Jailolo Selatan, Halmahera Barat, Maluku Utara.
Sexual harassment can happen anywhere. One of them is in the campus environment.
At Warman University itself, there are several cases of sexual harassment that occurred. Here are some of the cases.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Best wishes for all of us. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Allah who has been giving us guidance, happiness, and health so we can attend and participate in this event without any obstacles. My name is Desti Intan Marhaini, and I'm very happy to be Master of Ceremony for today's panel's discussion with the theme, Sexual Harassment, What Do We Need to Know? The purpose of this discussion is to broaden our understanding of sexual harassment and raise our awareness on this topic. Before we begin, I would like to remind you all to listen carefully during this discussion. We also encourage you to engage in this conversation by jotting down any questions you may have, as we will be holding a Q&A session at the end of this event. Without any further ado, let's start the event today with Basmalah. Bismillah. The next agenda is greeting. The greeting will be delivered by our lecturer for Dr. Nur Rahmawati MPD. Time is yours.
Thank you, MC. Okay. Hello and good morning, everyone. I would like to extend my gratitude to our guest today, Mr. Muhammad Fatih. Thank you for coming. Everyone, we are all here today to have a significant discussion about sexual harassment, which needs our immediate attention. Our talk today gives us a chance to get deeper into the complicated issues surrounding sexual harassment. We can learn about its different forms, how it affects victims, and the best ways to stop and deal with it. What we would like to do in this panel discussion, we would like to raise awareness. We would like to bust the myths and look into concrete steps to make our academic community a place where sexual harassment is not tolerated through open dialogue and critical examination. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to understand that stopping sexual harassment takes a group effort. Every one of us is very important for promoting a culture of respect, equality, and dignity. By taking part in panel discussion like one we are having today, we can help make a classroom a safer and more welcoming place for everyone. I would love to hear everyone to take an active role in this discussion, listen carefully, and come to it with empathy and understanding. Let's make a promise to build a community where everyone feels valued, heard, and able to make decisions. All right, so let's talk about sexual harassment. Thank you very much, and I'm giving back to the MC. Thank you, MC.
Thank you for the greeting, Miss. The next agenda will be hosted by our moderator. For Diko Adam, time is yours.
Sabar. Udah pakai baru. Thank you, Miss Desti, for giving me a chance for today's discussion. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion about sexual harassment. I'm your moderator for today's panel discussion, and I'm thrilled to have you all here today. But before we start, I would like to read our today's speaker amazing and remarkable background and achievement. Mungkin bisa di-share screen aja. Di-share screen. Okay. Muhammad Al-Fatih. He studied from TKIT Azahro from 2003 until 2005, SDIT Cordova from 2005 until 2011, SMP IT Cordova from 2011 to 2000, and transferred into Al-Islami from 2015, and in high school, Khalid bin Walid High School from 2016 until 2020. And currently at Universitas Mula Warman from 22 until now. And also, he got an amazing experience from May 2017 as a contributor at Lepas Detik, June 2022 as a journalist at samarindakita.com. September 2022 is joining Satgas PPKS Unmul until, and currently January 2023 is a journalist at kaltimkece.id. So that's our profile from our speaker for today. So based on the topic today, we have a crucial topic to delve into. So let's kick things off with our first question. Question number 1 is, what is considered sexual harassment? Panelist number 1, what is your take on this question? Panelist number 1, you can proceed.
Thank you, Pak Moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Masari. So, Sexual harassment is when someone does or says sexual things that make another person feel uncomfortable, scared, or upset. This could be comments, gestures, or any other actions that are sexual and not wanted.
Thank you, Mr. Ari, for sharing your insight. Now, I'd like to hear from the rest of the panelists, starting from Ms. Wulan. What are your thoughts? Ms. Wulan?
Thank you to Mr. Diko as our moderator and to Mr. Ari for sharing his opinion. My name is Surulandari and now I will give my opinion. So, in my opinion, sexual harassment is a sexual activity or act that occurs without consent. The types of sexual harassment I'm aware of are verbal comments, touching, groping, hugging, kissing without consent, inappropriate sexual comments, and jokes. However, sexual harassment is not right and should not happen. It often leaves victims feeling upset, scared, humiliated, or unsafe. And for me, it can have a serious impact on their physical and mental health and can affect their quality of life. It was a response for me. Thank you.
Yes, is Mr. Amar. Do you have anything to add to this response?
Okay, thank you, Diko. So before I start, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Muhammad Ramarizudin, and I'm an active student in Mula Warman University. Okay, so I agree with what the other panelists has said, and what I can conclude is that sexual harassment is any unwanted sexual behaviors that make someone feel sad, scared, offended, or humiliated, or is meant to make them feel that way. And what I like to say is, how can someone feel upset or offended if they didn't understand what happened to them is a sexual harassment? Okay, so for example, like someone thinking that things that happen to them is not sexual harassment because maybe they were just having fun, or maybe her or his friend just joking around and making fun of each other. So an act or verbal expression that you think it is based on just joking or messing around can be harassment. So because you don't know the intention of someone doing that to you. And this is why we need to know what is considered as sexual harassment. Okay, maybe that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shan. Now, I want to hear a response from our guest panelist, Mr. Fatih. Time is yours.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay,
First of all, I'd
morning,
like
everyone.
to thank you all, especially Ms. Wati and Desti, and all of you for the chance to talk in front of you. I think the panelists have been giving us real good definitions of what is sexual harassment, and I actually want to emphasize what emphasize the barrier between sexual harassment and what is not sexual harassment. I think the main barrier is is it okay if I doing a share screen here? Oh, okay. I'm disabled to share screen. Anyways, so yeah, as I said, I actually have a presentation for you guys to see, but I'm disabled to share screen, so I just will talk it verbally. So the main barrier between what is actually not only sexual harassment but any harassment, between harassment and what is considered as a joke or playing around is consent. So something is considered playing around is both parties is consensually having an agreement that it is a joke. For example, if I play around with a friend of mine and a friend of mine agrees with that action, that would not consider it as harassment. But if it only if it is taken only as a joke by one party and not the other, it will be taken as harassment. For example, if I make a move that makes the other party or a friend of mine feels uncomfortable, but I think it is a joke. It is not a joke because the other party doesn't consider it as a joke. So yeah, the main barrier is consent. If both parties have consent of the action, it is not harassment. But if the consent is only taken but by the one party only and not the other, it will be considered as harassment. And if the action is sexual action, it will be taken as sexual harassment. I think that's the main matter. Yeah, I think that's it. Is there any other question, or should I continue with the topic? I give it back to the moderator. Okay, so should I continue with the topic, or should I just giving it back to the moderator and the panelists to ask questions? I'm
You can continue, Mr. Patrick.
okay. All right. So as I said to you, sorry for the bad presentation it is made by the lecture. Not me.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Before the presentation, I would like to have a disclaimer that there might be several things that will trigger you guys, especially those who have traumas with sexual harassment. So I'd like to remind you that if any of you have emotional response, you guys can have a break. That's okay, and especially it's Zoom meeting, so we can have a break. We can go to the toilet, etc. But yeah, I would like to remind you that there might be things that will trigger you. Is that okay? Are we clear? All right, I will consider. So yeah, as I told you, the main barrier is consent. So if it is forced by one party to the other party, it will be considered as harassment. And if the action is sexual action, it will be considered as sexual harassment. There are laws there is law that defining what is sexual harassment, which are ya si fancy peraturan Mendikbud nomor 82 tahun 2015, putusan Mendikbud nomor 74 2021, and especially the last one, peraturan Mendikbud nomor 30 tahun 2021 tentang pencegahan dan penanganan kekerasan seksual di lingkungan pendidikan tinggi. Sorry that I'm not translating it to English. So I would like to show you the definition of what is sexual harassment based on. I mean, we were talking it in a normative way, but based on Permendikbudristek nomor 30 tahun 2021, sexual harassment is any action that is attacking someone's body or their reproduction function because of relasi kuasa. I don't know what is it in English. that is that will damage them physically or psychologically, and that will make them not having a chance for continuing their studies. So this is the definition of sexual harassment in campus. And further, in Undang-Undang Nomor 12 Tahun 2022 tentang tindak pidana kekerasan seksual, it is specifically defined that there are things that will be considered as sexual harassment, and not only physically. As you can see, even non-physical sexual harassment is considered as sexual harassment. So, for your information, before this act, only an act of sexual penetration, just rap, that will be considered as sexual harassment. But after this act, after UU Nomor 12 Tahun 2022 tentang tindak pidana kekerasan seksual and Permendikbudristek Nomor 30 Tahun 2021, any action, physically and non-physically, even verbally, that is being forced for someone to someone, a sexual action forced to someone without consent, it will be considered as sexual harassment. As you can see here, there are several things that will be considered as sexual harassment. So there are four things: verbally, non-physically, physically, and even cyber bully. If there is sexual action included, will be considered as sexual harassment. So, based on Permendikbudristek Nomor 30 Tahun 2021, there are 21 forms of sexual harassment: discrimination, exhibition, sexism, even looking at someone sexually will be considered as sexual harassment. Giving message or content sexually without any consent will be considered as harassment. So, and sometimes you're doing it without even realizing it that as sexual harassment. For example, if we have a WhatsApp group and we are sending some vulgar stickers that probably some members are not consent with that content, it is considered a sexual harassment. Say recording audio or visual without consent. Maybe some of you or even me having an experience with this, that there might be contents in TikTok or Facebook, like you can see sexual lecturers check, and sometimes we're taking it as a joke, but it will be considered, and based on law, not only in a normative way, it is considered as sexual harassment. Yeah, spreading information about someone's privacy will be considered as sexual harassment if there is any sexual content included. Yeah, picking will be considered as sexual harassment. Yeah, promising something or will be considered as promising something for someone to have a sexual intercourse will be considered as sexual harassment. Giving sanctions, for example, if there are some cases though even in our campus that some lecturer is giving sanctions for their students in a sexual way, and if before it was considered as normal, but after this act, it will be considered as sexual harassment. Yeah, even touching without consent will be considered as sexual harassment. Of course, this will be considered as sexual harassment. Forcing someone to open their clothes or manipulating someone to having sexual intercourse will be considered sexual harassment as well. Or maybe some of you might experience this during your orientation before getting into the university, that there might be some seniors who force you to open your clothes, etc. It might be considered as normal. So this is the main point here, that there are several things that we considered as normal back then, but after this act, those things will be considered as sexual harassment. Yeah, even trying to harass someone will be considered a sexual harassment. You can say it with, even there's no penetration, it will be considered a sexual harassment. Before, it was not considered a sexual harassment until there's penetration. I'm sorry for the further way of speaking of mine, but after this act, even trying would be considered a sexual harassment. This, of course, yes, as I told you before, manipulating, not only manipulating someone to having a sexual intercourse, but manipulating someone to abort children, for example. There might be people who do pre-marital sex, and after that, two parties are not having a same view of their children. And if this kind of thing happens, if one party wants to abort children and the other party doesn't want it, and one party is forcing it, it will be considered a sexual harassment. Yeah, manipulating someone is sexual harassment. And I think this is even if we are not the perpetrator, but if we let sexual harassment happen, we are considered as doing sexual harassment as well. I mean, look at this. There might be cases that sexual harassment is not open to public due to keeping the good name of the university before, but if those kind of things happen now, it will be considered a sexual harassment. And not only this kind of thing, not only this example, but other things, like if we know people around us, or if we see in front of us that is, if we see a sexual harassment case happening in front of us and we let that happen, we're not doing anything about it, we will be considered as sexual offender. So I think I will stop here for you guys if you have any questions. I think I'd like to share some opinions about the forms of sexual harassment before we continue the topic. So yeah, I'm giving it back to the moderator. So is there any questions regarding the topic that I just presented, forms of sexual harassment? Panelists, the MC, or the moderator, or any of you guys? I will welcome some questions from them or
Sorry,
for
sir.
us to discuss.
There is a problem. The mic, our moderator is lost connection. I have a trouble. So wait.
Bisa nih, ada apa? Ini dari excuse me, there is some technical difficulties. So for the panelists, any other would like to add, maybe some response or maybe some opinion that you can share? Anyone? Any other panelists? From panelist 1, panelist 2, or maybe panelist 3?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think to make sure everyone understands, it is really important to teach and train people about sexual harassment. This means clearly explaining what it is, giving examples, and showing empathy. So we need to understand that sexual harassment creates a bad atmosphere, and it is important to always respect others and get their consent. I think that's it. Their consent.
Okay. Thank you for Mr. Ari for the response. And moving on to the next question is what happened when someone experiences sexual harassment? Ms. Wulan, you can answer the question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Disco. So maybe in my opinion, before, as far as I know, when someone is sexual harassed, they can experience various negative effects, emotionally, psychologically, and physically. Almost all victims of sexual harassment have a negative feeling that arises after the incident occurs, ranging from shame, sorrow, fear. If this feeling persists, the victim could potentially experience mental health discourses such as depression and even suicidal thoughts. So maybe it's all my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wulan, for your answer. So, any other panelists would like to add something, response, or any argument? Maybe Mr. Amar can add something.
Okay, thank you, Rico. So from what I heard from panelist Wandali, and from what I know is that when someone experience sexual harassment, they may they may undergo various emotional, psychological, and physical effects like fear, shame, guilt, anger, humiliation, and trauma issue. Yeah. Maybe that's it for me.
So, thank you, Mr. Amar, for your response. And maybe our dear guest panelists can add some response to this question.
The question is, what happens when someone experiences sexual harassment?
Should I answer the question or oh, okay, I should answer the question. Yeah, I think it is. I agree with the point that the panelists said that there are some effects psychologically or physically that happens during a sexual harassment is a sexual harassment occurred. So going back to the presentation, uh, when when a victim of a sexual harassment when a sexual harassment occurred, the victim will experience tonic immobility. So sometimes lot of times, not sometimes, a lot of times, a question is asked to the victim of sexual harassment: why don't you fight back? Why are you letting him or her doing a sexual harassment to you? Why don't you say no? But the thing is, sometimes they're not fighting back, they're not screaming or running away from the perpetrator. It's because they're having tonic immobility. So they are freezing and they can't even do anything because of the shock of the moment. So they don't know how to respond. Not because they don't want to fight back, not because they are consent with the action, but because the psychological effect impacting the physical their physical form which makes this moment occur, tonic mobility. So this answers the question why or what is the impact of the sexual harassment not only after the uh, moment it happened, but the moment it happened, a tonic mobility which frees the victim of the sexual harassment happened. So the really first trauma happened occurred during the sexual harassment. So that's my take on the question. And the other thing is that because of that, we can't blame the victim because sometimes before even we blame the victim because of the tonic immobility, we question them why don't they fight back, etc. They will blame themselves internally. They will feel ashamed of their because they became the victim of sexual harassment. Like uh, they question themselves, why do I dress that way, or why didn't I go with my friends, etc. But because of that, we should not blame the victim of sexual survivors because and not only not blaming them, but we should giving them some psychological help, like making them sure that they should not be blamed for becoming the victim of sexual harassment. Instead, they should get help psychologically or physically, or even going to the police to report the sexual harassment that happened. And this is myth, even though of course, sometimes it happens, but it only happens every once in a blue moon. But a lot of times, people are accusing the victim of sexual harassment as giving a false accusation that they want to they want they want the other party to have a bad image in front of the society, etc. But this this view should not be taken if there is any sexual harassment case happen. Instead, first thing first, sorry, we should believe the report. After that, we should verify it. But the first thing, we should not judge or even accusing the victim of sexual harassment as giving a false accusation. But unfortunately, this happens a lot in our society. For example, if um, there's a case happening between a lecturer and maybe already graduate student, people will blame the graduate student for being, you know, dressing to dressing too well, etc. But it is not their fault. Excuse me.
Thank you for Mr. Papi for giving the response. And to our dear panelists, and want to add anything or giving response?
Okay, thank you. I think if someone goes through sexual harassment, they may feel scared, embarrassed, or really upset. Uh, this this can mess with their mental and emotional health. So how will they do at work or school, and how safe they feel? It is important to help them out by giving support, showing them where to get help, and making sure they can report what happened. And also, steps need to be taken to deal with the situations. Look into what happened, and make sure it doesn't happen again. And then helping victims means giving them counseling if they need it, getting them legal help if it is necessary, and making sure they feel safe to talk about what happened. And to stop it from happening, we need to teach people about it. Make sure everyone respect each other and hold those responsible accountable for their actions. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ari, for your response. Any other panelists would like to add anything? If there nothing, then we can move on to the next question. Next question is, how does power or authority affect sexual harassment? Maybe for the third panelist or Mr. Amar can answer this question.
Okay, thank you, Rico. So, if we're talking about power, the most common case in sexual harassment is the misuse of power. And the misuse of power is often the cause of sexual harassment itself. When individuals abuse their authority or influence, they may exploit power imbalance to engage in harassing behaviors toward others. And by and by understanding and addressing these power dynamics, we can make progress in stopping and fighting against cases of sexual harassment more efficient. Okay, thank you. Maybe that's it from me.
Okay. Thank you for Mr. Amar for your incredible answers. Any other panelists would like to add? Okay, for Mr. Ari, you can give your response.
Power dynamics can make sexual harassment worse because people in trust can use their power to harass others. With this, we need to make sure everyone is treated fairly, have strict rules against harassment, and hold those who do it responsibly. So I think to do is set up a way for people to report harassment easily, teach everyone about power imbalance and how to stop harassment, and make sure everyone knows they will be held accountable for their actions to make harassment situation fair. That's it.
Any other panelists would like to add? Ms. Wulan? No?
Thank you. Maybe my opinion, when authority figures are involved in sexual harassment situations, it often means that someone in power is using their position to pressure others into unwanted sexual behavior. Victims might be hesitate to report this kind of harassment because they fear that what might happen to them if they speak up. And in additionally, if authority figures ignore or excuse harassment, it can make it seem like it's normal or okay. It just makes it harder for victims to recognize and report it. And then for perpetrators who hold power might also think they can get away with harassment because they believe they won't face any consequences. And moreover, how a company responds to harassment involving authority figures shape the company's culture and affect how common harassment is, and whether a victim feels them reporting it. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wulan, for your input. So, how about Mr. Fatih response about how does power or authority affect sexual harassment? Mr. Fatih, you can answer the question.
Yeah. So it is actually my next presentation that sorry that one factor that makes sexual harassment happen is power abuse or the misuse of power that makes a gap between the victim and the perpetrator. And it is not only a definition uh, sorry and it is not only a definition that happens that occurred during our discussion, but it is even stated in the law itself, as you can see, Peraturan Sekjen Kemendikbudristek. So this is the law that explaining Permendikbudristek nomor 30 tahun 2021. So the technicality it is explained here, and power abuse is considered as one factor, not only one factor, but one main factor that causing sexual harassment to happen. Either it is the power of knowledge, economical power, or sorry, or any authority or social status that makes the perpetrator higher than the victim. And the statistics support that argument. Like for example, the age most of the cases of sexual harassment, the victim is younger than the perpetrator, or they're having a lower education than the perpetrator, and the gender stereotypes makes sexual harassment occurs more than it should happen. And there are several examples of the the power relation of or the power abuse in campus, like the leader and the staff. The second, which happens the most, is the lecturer and the student, the senior lecturer and the junior lecturer, or even the senior student and their juniors. So, and I would like,
Jadi itu nah apa tuh satunya tuh udah habis baru pakai satu itu dua ini beda baterai.
And I would like to inform you guys as well that there are several cases in our campus in Pulau Warman University that happens because of power relation. Even before Satgas PPKS formed, there were cases in Fakultas Kehutanan, Forestry faculty that happened between a lecturer, a really old lecturer, and his 3 female students. And this happened because of power relation. And not only that case, after Satgas PKS formed, after the task force of sexual harassment is formed, there are 2 cases involving, one is involving vice dean in I forgot in a faculty in our university, and the other involving a professor, a really respected professor in another faculty in our university. And those 2 cases are proving concretely that sexual harassment mostly happen because of power relation, because of the misuse of power, because of power abuse. I think that's it for the topic of power abuse. I'm giving it back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you for guest panelists for the incredible input. So we're moving on to the next question is that what can we do to encourage people to step in and stop harassment when they see it? And for this question, I would like to address Ms. Wulan to answer it. Or maybe Ms. Wulan can answer the question. Any other panelists would like to answer the question?
Okay. So I think if you see someone being bullied or harassed, you can intervene by talking to the bully, helping the victim, and informing someone in authority about what happened. Teaching people to intervene when they see bullying or harassment can make them feel more confident to take action. Encouraging people to intervene when they see bullying or harassment means making them feel that is their duty to help and stand up. Teaching them how to step up safely and addressing risk of getting into trouble, and praising them when they step up can make more people willing to help. Okay, is it?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ari, for your incredible answer. Maybe Mr. Amar can add some response to this.
Okay, thank you, moderator. So, like what the panelist Ari has said and the guest panelist has mentioned it before on his presentation. So, if we witness harassment or sexual violence happening in public, so we must have the courage to speak up and make the perpetrator back off. So, if we're not brave enough to do that, so try to open up a conversation or pretend to be lost or ask for direction from the victim so that the perpetrator won't dare do such thing. And I think what we can do to encourage people is by being an example for others, like by taking proactive steps to intervene and speak out against harassment. And if you lead by example and show others the importance of standing up against sexual harassment. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amar, for the response. Per usual, maybe Mr. Pati can add more response to this. to the question of how we can do to encourage people to step in and stop harassment when they say it.
I think it is quite simple. I don't want to I don't want to say a lot. I mean, I said it before that letting a sexual harassment happen in front of you is considered a sexual harassment as well. But the other thing is that we should be encouraged to not letting sexual harassment happen because first of all, we don't want that to happen to us. Secondly, we don't want it to happen for the people that we love, like our sister or our mom or our friend. So the thing is, if we don't want it to happen to us or we don't want it to happen uh, to the people that we love, so we should not let it happen to anyone. I think I think that is my question. That if you don't want it to happen to you or happening to the people that you know, so even if it happens to a stranger that you don't recognize, but it happens, you witness it in front of you, you should not let it happen. You should taking action to the perpetrator to not letting it happen. I think that is my question, my answer. Sorry.
Thank you for Mr. Fatih for the input, and maybe we can move on to the next question is what are some wrong ideas people have about sexual harassment? Maybe Ms. Wulan could have answered this question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Diko. So maybe my question is, in my opinion, the wrong ideas people have about sexual harassment is they understand that harassment is not the victim's fault, and there are still many people who often blame the victim. And then how we can teach people the truth and maybe dare to speak up through our fear way when we see these patient incidents be affirmed and then company and provide support to the victim, report to the authorities, and tell the story according to what you see. Maybe they all my about my question, my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wulan, for your answers. So, any other panelists would like to add something to this question? Maybe Mr. Amar could add something to this.
Okay, thank you, moderator. So, what are some wrong ideas people have about sexual harassment? So, as the guest panelist has mentioned before in the previous questions, and one that triggered me the most is like some people even go as far as to think that the victim of the harassment must also bear some responsibility for causing the harassment to happen. So they were blaming the victim. So they think that if a person, for example, dressed in a revealing way, it gives an excuse for someone to harass them. So they argue that showing skin can make someone act inappropriately and making it seem okay for them to harass. But so is this true? Like, definitely not. Okay, harassing someone is never okay, uh, no matter how they're dressed. The only reason someone harass another person because they want to hurt or control them, and it is not true that only revealing clothes cause harassment. Like even if someone is dressed modestly, they can still be a victim of sexual harassment. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the panelists for your amazing input. So maybe Mr. Patih would like to add something about what are some wrong ideas people have about sexual harassment?
Okay, there are of course several myths about sexual harassment. So first, sexual harassment. There is a relation between sexual harassment and their how they dress, and of course, it is a myth. What people dress doesn't have any relation with sexual harassment. Even as you can see here, 17% of the sexual harassment case occurred to people wearing hijab. So, and the other cases happen to people wearing dress that are not considered as vulgar, as you can see here. They they're not like wearing tank tops or anything, but they're wearing like just decent dress. And this was the result of a survey that was held by the coalition of public space, involving around 60,000 respondents. And the result is that we should conclude there is no relation between how people dress. There is no absolute relation between how people dress and a sexual harassment case based on the survey. And of course, there are other myths like the age. So yeah, as the panelists say that the problem, it never is about the victim. The problem is always with the perpetrator. As you can see here, even a case happened to a kindergarten student, which is only 5 years old, or it even happened to a grandmother that is 95 years old, or even 2 weeks old baby is a victim of a sexual harassment. So we should conclude here that there is no relation. The victim is not. We should not be blamed at all, because the problem is with the perpetrator based on these cases. And another myth is that some people think that sexual harassment only occur that only strangers can become the perpetrator of sexual harassment. But there is another myth of sexual harassment. The thing is that the fact is that a lot of case happens from the people around the victim. In the survey held by Komnas Perempuan, most perpetrators of sexual harassment are either fathers or the uncle of the victim. And I think this is the most interesting myth, that male cannot be a victim of the sexual harassment. Is it a fact or is it a myth? It is a myth, because in 2019, as you can see, it is not girl but boys facing most cases of sexual harassment that happen to children. As you can see here, there are 122 cases in 2018 happen to boys. So we should conclude here that first thing first, we should not blame the victim, but blame the perpetrator, because it all happened because of the perpetrator. The second thing, we should understand the psychological effect that happened during the case, and we should have communication to children, because in a lot of cases involving children, they are too afraid and they don't even understand what happened to them when a sexual harassment case happened to them. So we should build communication. Of course, this is for parents or for us, because we will be parents one day. That we should build communication to children, or otherwise they cannot. It will be traumatic for them because they could not communicate what happened to them. Sorry. And of course, this is quite technical. If a sexual harassment occur, and of course this is my duty as well as task force of sexual harassment, or if this case happen to people near you, you should know that you should collect the things that can be considered as proof of the case if you want to report it to the police. I think, yeah, I think I will stop there.
Thank you for Mr. Fatih for the amazing and incredible insight of the answer. And we come to our last question of this discussion. Why is it important to learn about harassment? Maybe this question can be answered by Mr. Fatih himself. Mr. Fatih, you can answer this question.
Give me a second, okay. Okay, so the question is, why is it important for us to help the victim of sexual harassment? And actually,
While we're waiting Mr. Fatih to answer the question, maybe the panelists can answer the question. Mr. Amar, you can proceed to answer the question.
Okay, thank you, moderator. So, why is it important to learn about sexual harassment? So, it is because education about sexual harassment helps reduce the negative stigma and shame associated with sexual harassment. So, it can encourage victims and also survivors to come forward and look for help without fear of judgment. And also, learning about sexual harassment can help to create safer and more respectful environments in campus, in schools, in communities, workplace, or other settings. Okay, maybe that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Amar, for your amazing input. Maybe Mr. Ari would like to add to his response.
Thank you,
Yeah. Okay. I think learning about harassment is crucial for creating safe and respectful environments for everyone. It helps individuals recognize unacceptable behavior, support victims, and take proactive steps to prevent harassment from occurring in the future. By promoting awareness and education, we can work towards creating a society where harassment is not too limited. Okay, this is
Thank you, Mr. Ari and Mr. Amar, for your amazing input. Maybe Mr. Fatih can answer the question, why is it important to learn about harassment?
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm not quite well this morning. I think Mr. Rama and the other panelists has have given us really good answers regarding why should we learn sexual harassment, and I would just like to add to their answers that why is it important to have a sexual education? Why is it important to address sexual harassment happening around us? Is because I think my answer, my take on that is that because uh, these years we have been normalizing sexual harassment happening around us. We blame the victim, uh, we normalize sexist jokes, etc. But I think this is time for us to say no for all those actions. We should say no for sexist jokes. We should say no for lecturers or seniors in our campus for treating us badly, which happened for years or decades maybe. And I think the importance of learning about sexual harassment is that knowing that even our own actions might have been harassing people sexually without even us realizing it. Maybe small things like WhatsApp stickers or our jokes to our friends, which we consider as normal, but apparently is not, and it's considered as sexual harassment. And I think that is the main point why we should learn about sexual harassment is knowing that a lot of things around us that been happen that has been happening and we've been normalizing it are sexual harassments. I think that's my take on that.
Okay, and with the last question answered, uh, my last request as a moderator is that I want each of the panelists giving their closing remark, starting from Mr. Hari, continue with Ms. Wulan, and close with Mr. Amar. For each panelist, time is yours. Close.
okay. Thank you. In my conclusion, sexual harassment is any unwelcome sexual behavior that makes someone feel uncomfortable, scared, or upset. To ensure understanding, education, and empathy are key, emphasize respect and consent. Again, a victim of sexual harassment may experience emotional distress and harm. Support should be provided through counseling, legal assistance, and creating safe reporting mechanisms while also addressing the issue to prevent recurrence. And then power dynamic, exacerbate sexual harassment, necessitating for fair treatment, strict policy, and accountability, establishing easy reporting system, educating about power imbalance, and ensuring consequence for predators are crucial steps. That's it.
Okay. Miss Fulan may continue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Diko. So maybe, and the conclusion for me is sexual harassment includes any unwanted sexual action like comments, touching, or joke. It's hurtful and can hurt victim both physically and mentally. And then we need to correct misunderstanding about sexual harassment, like blaming victims, speaking out, supporting victims, and educating others are vital in stopping it. And then learning about harassment is important for preventing inappropriate behavior, protecting health, and stopping harassment. And it helps promote healthy attitude towards and to victims. Maybe it's all for me. Thank you.
Okay. Lastly, Mr. Amar, 10 years for your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Diko. And what I'd like to conclude is that the other panelists has explained it about the conclusion of today's topic. And in my opinion, the topic of sexual harassment is very important to be studied and paid attention to because in a judgmental society, like where many people tend to blame the victim as the cause of sexual harassment. Like often people believe that the reason it happened is because the victim wear a revealing clothes that can provoke perpetrators act. And one thing I like to add is that like even if they report to the authorities, like it will be difficult because of the lack of evidence and fear of judgment, anxiety, and panic attacks because of the traumatic experience. And I think this is why we need to be supportive and open-minded to this topic so that the victim can feel safe around us. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the panelists for their each closing remarks. And with that, session ended. And we move to the Q&A session. So any audience that would like to ask anything about today's topic, it'd be welcomed to ask. Maybe if you want to ask, you can raise your hand. Sania dulu ya berarti. Okay, for Sania, maybe what is your question?
My name is Tania Zarfanur Azahro, and my question is, what is the important role of gender equality in preventing sexual harassment, and how can we get involved in promoting gender equality in our daily lives?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sania, for your question. We keep it first so that we can answer it better. So, anyone wanna ask another question? I see that Agil you wanna ask. Agil, you can ask your question.
All right, guys. Okay. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask. First of all, my name is Agil. I'm a student from Balikpapan University, and thank you also for the explanation from the speakers and the panelists, friends, for making this seminar a place of learning. First of all, well, I recently received the latest information about sexual violence against minors through cyberspace. And it seems that parents in nowadays are not aware about that. My question it is, how can we as a parents teach our children and teenagers about the important healthy boundaries in interpersonal relationship to prevent sexual abuse in the future? If it's not clear, I can reply my questions again. Is it clear? Okay, thank you.
Agil, may I know this question is for the panelists or for the speaker?
All right. My question is for the speaker.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so anyone want to ask another question? Okay. Okay, from Sania is, what is the important role of gender equality in preventing sexual harassment? How can we get involved in promoting gender equality in our daily life? And for Agil question for the speaker, how can we teach children and teenagers about healthy boundaries in interpersonal relationships to prevent future sexual harassment? For Mr. Patri, you can answer your question. That is, how can we teach children and teenagers about healthy boundaries in interpersonal relationships to prevent future sexual harassment? Mr. Patri, you can answer the question.
Okay, should I answer Agil's question only, or should I answer Sania's question as well, or how does it work?
You can answer both of the question.
Okay. Okay, for Agil's question, well, I'm not a parent yet, but I think, yeah, we should, that is quite interesting to note that, unfortunately, sexual education, especially among boomers, except Ms. Swati, of course, is often considered as taboo. And our duty as the next generation, as the next parents of the children, the upcoming children, is that we should erase the taboo of sexual education. It is okay to address the sexual organs to our children, to address what is, pardon me, what is penis, what is vagina, how does our um, sexual reproduction organs work, and of course the objective is not to teach them wrong things, but the otherwise is that for them to be aware of how their body work, of which areas that is considered sensitive for them, and I think it should be learned from the earlier since yeah, even kindergarten. But of course, the thing is that it is still considered taboo for some generation, and it is our duty as the next parents to not um, to erase the taboo of sexual education. I think that's my answer for Agils. Is it enough?
Yes, it's enough. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Kak Fatih. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm quite surprised that there is student from another university. So yeah, thank you for joining this conversation. And for Shania, yeah, I think as I have been mentioning before, that power relation is the main cause of the sexual harassment, and power relation including gender relation, because in our patriarch society there is quite a significant gap between male and female, which causing female sometimes has a lower position in society. So of course, when we talk about sexual harassment, we should talk about gender equality. How we, society, not becoming patriarch anymore, or not, of course, not patriarch, not the opposite, but seeing male and female as an equal member of society. I think that is a quite important question of the regarding sexual harassment, that if we're talking about sexual harassment, we should talk about gender equality as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fatih.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fatih, for answering the question. And Mr. Ari would like to answer the question from Sania. That is, what is the important role of gender equality in preventing sexual harassment? How can we get involved in promoting gender equality in our daily life? Mr. Ari, time is yours.
Thank you for the questions. And I think gender
Equality is super important in stopping sexual harassment because it helps balance power and promotes respect for everyone. No matter their gender, we can do our part in our daily life by supporting equal opportunities, challenging stereotypes, and speaking out against discriminations. It is about making sure everyone has a fair chance and is treated with dignity and respect. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ari, for the response and the answers. Maybe other panelists would like to add regarding this question. If there is no other response, or Mr. Amar, please proceed.
Okay, thank you, moderator. I absolutely agree what the panelist Ari has said. And what I'd like to add is on the second question is, how can we get involved in promoting gender equality in our daily life? So talking about gender equality, so it is the most famous international issue around the world, right? So how can we promoting gender equality is, of course, by educate ourselves So how can we support or promote gender equality if we don't know about the gender issues? So what we have to do is learn about gender issues, stereotypes, and bias, and understand how they affect people and society as a whole, and stay updated on the current events and news and research related to the gender equality and gender issues. Okay, maybe that's it for me. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for Amar for your another input. And maybe that's all for that's the end of Q&A session. Thank you for each of the panelists and for our guest speaker. With that, ended our time together in this discussion. Me, Diko Adam, as your moderator, thanking all of you for giving me the chance to guide and leading discussion. And I give it back to the MC. With this, I say goodbye.
Thank you to Diko Adam as the moderator who has guided today's activity so they run well. I also would like to thank the panelists and our guest speaker for their time and expertise today. Let's give them a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our event. I would like to say apologize. Thank you for all of you. Hopefully, this discussion is useful for all of us. Before I close this panel discussions, I would like to read my pantun first. Bunga mekar di perbukitan, sawah luas di pedesaan. Terima kasih untuk perhatian. Mohon maaf untuk kesalahan. I am Desti Intan Marhaini. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Pati.
Thank you,
Miss
Mr.
Wati.
Pati.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the chance.
Thank you, Mr. Fatih.